Shalom, everybody. First of all, again, congratulations to Sharim Tikva, Bridges for Hope, for the wonderful, awesome celebration of 16 Holocaust survivors yesterday at the ancient synagogue of Tzipori. We put a lot of pictures on the media and all of the pages, and we're going to send you also in the WhatsApp groups. We want to talk a little bit about Joseph, and I continue my part. My part is to try to see, in one hand, the biblical tradition inside of the biblical literature, and on the other hand, to see the findings that we have from archaeology, to see if the things contradict or they support each other. So we did it mainly with people coming from Mesopotamia, if you remember, the Amuru, to Judah, and we mentioned that the people in Israel, some of them, they came from Egypt. And that's what the biblical traditions say to us, that there was an exodus of people coming from Egypt. Now, Joseph, the story is that the children of Abraham, the Jacob many, they are in Egypt. So we have to ask ourselves, are people that look like Canaanites on Egypt? And we found that many sources and reliefs. This is a famous one, the depicting woman on it's a drawing based on the picture, but you can see woman, Jewish ladies, how to call it, in Egypt.
What makes them look Jewish?
We're going to say in a second.
Okay.
If you ask already, I will say. There is from Ramses the Third, not the second, the third. There is a depiction of, you can see people look different, right? I'm going to just take a drawing that make some of the scholars to see how they look. Okay. One of them, this is from, let's say, 1180. So you can see number one is Egyptian depicting themselves as black. Next to them, there is a person that is depicted like, I would say, Indo-European. Somebody a little bit darker, and this is an African. This is from the southern. And then you can see a Semite. I don't know how, can you see the Semite?
Yes.
And we have many descriptions of Semites. Now, all of what I'm going to show you now is from different, somebody just make a relief from different Semite, Canaanite people. And you can see all of this is all taken from real inscriptions and depictions. They all look kind of similar. I don't want to say look exactly like an Ashkenazi Jew, but it looks definitely closer to what we used to know as Semites. Okay. Again, you can see the four types. It's a little bit exaggerated, the drawings, but you can see again, this is the Semite. Look at the, you can see the Egyptian that is black, but it's black pink. He's not so dark like the Nubian one. You can see the Semite. Now look at the tzitzit. You see the tzitzit there? That's the tzitziot. And this is what we see here, you can see them better. You see all of the clauses, they have tzitziot. That's what we read every week and every prayer when we say the third paragraph of the Shema. We say that we have to put these fringes, and we will see them and we'll remember we have to keep the commandments. Now, this tzitziot is only in the Semites. All of the rest of the people don't have this tzitziot. It's very interesting. And we know that Jacob said that he make a special garment for Joseph, right? That's what we read in Genesis. And it's the tonet pasim, it's the tunic with the strips. Now, is exactly, we would say, from where the Bible know these things. So obviously, it's part of the realia. And now, you remember I showed you first the woman, but here's the old scene. You can see the Semites coming to Egypt with the donkeys and their clothes and the tonet pasim, the tunic with the things. This is a real a fresco from one of the tombs on the 12th century BCE.
But there's no tzitzit.
Here, well, it doesn't mean that it doesn't have the tzitzit. It's that the one that they make it, he didn't want to go to the detail of that. Or maybe that this group doesn't have the tzitzit. But you can see that the tonet pasim. You can see what Joseph has. So maybe some they have, some they don't, or maybe the artists here they say, well, I'm going to put now this little fringes also. That's ridiculous. But it looks this overwhelming pictures. Yes, Anita, please.
Yeah, at what point did they start covering the head? Because they don't seem to have head coverings on, other than that thing around there, that scarf little thing some of them have. It never struck me to ask that question. When did men start covering their head as a requirement?
Well, if you're asking about the kippah, the yarmulke?
Yes.
Oh, this is very, very late.
Okay.
There is, and the proof is that when you put a talit, you say a blessing. When you light the candles, you say a blessing. When you put a kippah, you don't say any blessing. It's just a custom.
That's true. Never thought about that. Okay, thank you.
It's not a mitzvah. If you want to put it, you put it, but it's only as a custom. I could elaborate more. I just want to try to be focused. So we have people coming, they're Canaanites, but we also have, I didn't print it yet, but we also have depictions of people called the Shasu. I don't know how much you can see it. I didn't print it. But first, it looks like the Canaanites. Now, this is from a temple that shows captives. This is the temple of Soleb. I don't know how you can see. This is down to Egypt. This is already Nubia, and Amenhotep III. That's how we used to, when they saw it first in the 18th century, this is how it looks, the city before the excavation and everything. But you could see the columns, right? Now, on the bottom of these columns, just a minute, what happened to it? At the bottom of these columns, they are depicting people taking prisoners. You can see reliefs of how the Egyptians beat these people there, that they look like Semites, like I showed you before, and they found inscriptions. Now, in these inscriptions, these people are called the Shasu of Yahweh. And this is the first time in the, I will say, the 13th century BCE, 14th century BCE. Well, you can see here is a table. My telephone is making me problems today here. You can see every letter analyzed, but you can see the three letters there making the name Yahweh. And the Yahweh is the ancient pronunciation of what we say Adonai today, but we keep on writing the same Yud Hey, Vav Hey. We use the same letters. And the Shasu of the Yahweh are part of the Shasu tribes, that they are connected with the Hapiru, that we say that they are part of the Canaanites that rebel against the Egyptian. So we have now, from the 16th century, Hapiru, we have Shasu, and these Shasu and Hapiru are kind of nomads, Canaanites, or look like Canaanites, dress like Canaanites, and they don't get so well with Egyptian. Some of them are taking slaves, and we know because they are also reliefs of Semites, slaves, working as slaves for the Egyptian in one of these million pictures that I just copied today and I didn't finish. Oh, here it says. And you could see they are working as slaves. Some of these Canaanites become slaves for Egypt, and that's what is written in descriptions. So we have a realia like this. We have in the 16th centuries people from Canaan taking over Egypt, and then with the new kingdom in the middle of the 16th century, the Egyptians took control over Egypt again, and an animosity against the Shasu and the Hapiru and the Israelites, the Bnei Israel. That's what we have. So all of this we see, if it's one, it's a circumstance, but we have so many pictures and so many circumstances that you can avoid. I want to finish a little bit about our tradition. We have 24 books in the Bible, but the first one is called Genesis, the Bereshit. And Genesis is divided in three clear parts. From chapter 1 to chapter 11, the background is Mesopotamian, very clear. It's connected to so many sources in Mesopotamia and the Sumerian and the Akkadian literature. In the middle, from chapters 20, and that's the story from the first man until Abraham came to history. From chapter 12 to chapter 36, we have stories of Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, Sarah, Rivka, Rachel, Leah, with the realia of what happened in Canaan, the Canaanite background. And from chapter 33 to chapter 50, we have a background that has so many reference to the Egyptian literature. So obviously, whoever wrote the book of Genesis, I don't want to say when he was written and how it was written, and it's much dispute among the scholars. But whoever wrote, he has an understanding, that I think is the clear understanding, that there is two main cultures, one in Mesopotamia, one in Egypt. The Hittite culture already disappeared when the story of Genesis is done. So we know the Hittites finished by the 12th century. And in the middle is the Canaanite culture, made from all kind of tribes, people coming, Amuru from Mesopotamia, people coming from Egypt. So we have already, for what we're going to discuss now for Joseph, the possibility that there is a tradition of Jews being on charge, coming a slave and becoming in power in Egypt, and the connection with the rest of the family that stay actually not in Judah, but in Israel, in the northern Israel, because Jacob is from the north. So the connection with the Amorites from Mesopotamia is with Judah in the south, and the connection between Egypt and the people that come from Egypt, the Shasu and the Habir and whatever, is with the northern kingdom of Israel. Different what we expect, but this is the reality. And with this, I'm going to pass the microphone. Not without saying that you did a wonderful speech yesterday in the synagogue, and it's in Facebook available for everybody.
Yes, thank you. Well, good afternoon, and nice to see you, Alan Schwartz. We haven't seen you for a while. We're glad to see you back.
Thank you.
All the way from California, so it's a ungodly hour of the morning, I guess. And we'll be asking you as the rest soon about Joseph and your Zionism. But just to answer a first question that Anita asked as to when Jews started wearing a kippah, because it's something I looked up to give a concrete answer. It's between the 3rd and the 6th century of the current era. And by the 6th century, it became pretty popular. But that's when Jews started. On the other hand, Abraham, our first patriarch, also wore a kippah. And there's a scientific proof of this that I'm not sure you're all familiar with, but you have to say it a little bit tongue-in-cheek. And the proof that Abraham wore a kippah was explained to me by a Orthodox person in my building. And he said, the proof is, can you imagine Abraham stepping out of the house without a kippah? It's impossible. So therefore, he obviously had a kippah. So that's the proof that we've always had kippot. But be that as it may. And again, I want to thank Edgar and Bridges for Hope and everyone who had any participation, however big and however small, an inspiration, which means including everyone here today for the terrific bar and bat mitzvah celebration yesterday. There were about 80 older people, 2 busloads, and 16 of them are Holocaust survivors who had never had a bar or a bat mitzvah and had one. It was very emotional. It was really beautiful. They got really excited to feel included. And part of what we do as a group also is we kind of reaffirm and firm up our inclusion in this Jewish thing or this Zionist thing by learning. And this group also learn from Edgar frequently over the holidays. And by being included and by having bar and bat mitzvah, especially for Russian-speaking people who sometimes are denigrated as not making enough of an effort to assimilate or to be a part of what's going on in Israel. So it was very nice for them to feel more included than they have until now, and that's a real inspiration. And of course, there was a little bit of party and some guiding about the history, because Tzipori is a place of the Talmud and of Rabbi Yehuda Nasi, who wrote the Talmud. Of course, the last piece of it being Pirkei Avot that we studied together. So that was a very nice event. And in terms of speeches to them, I was very happy that AI could translate my bar mitzvah blessing to them into Russian. And we had a person who not only knows how to speak Russian, but also to read Russian. And they read the words to them, and they found that very significant. So that was really nice. And anyone who wants AI to translate, the free ChatGPT will translate into Russian and into Hebrew. And so that's pretty cool. And today I'm going to use this high font or large font. Liz, is that really easy to see now?
Yes, but is it possible for you to close the Grammarly section? There's an X on that box.
Yes, okay. Yes.
Much better.
Okay, thank you. I didn't realize it was on. It gets on automatically, and it corrects things that are written by people other than me as well. So here's some about Joseph. We talked about Abraham, Isaac, Jacob. We talked about the 12 sons, each in terms of their reflection on our Zionism. So Joseph was deported, let's say, from Israel by force, right? He was sold into Egyptians and it ended up there. And he foresaw our return, and he made his family swear to bring his body back to Israel and to be buried here in Israel, or at the time it was Canaan. And the site of his burial is near Jerusalem and near Bethlehem. And it's a hotly contested place because it's over what we would call the Green Line. So the security in the area is by Palestinian Authority police. And that has led to problems when Israelis go to Keva Yosef, the traditional place that Joseph is said to be buried. And of course, we can't prove that he is or that he isn't. But that's the place. And when Jews go there to pray, then sometimes there are violent issues that have come up there. So one of the questions is, how is Zionism related to wanting to be buried in Israel? And you may know that there have been Jews throughout the centuries who believe that when the Messiah comes, those who are buried on the land of Israel will be redeemed. And thus Jews for centuries have purchased a little bit of dirt land, which comes from Israel, and it gets put under their head when they get buried, and therefore they are buried on land of Israel rather than being here in the land of Israel. And that's been a tradition, a kind of Zionist tradition for looking forward to a return to Israel one day in a messianic age. So one of the questions is whether each of us saw coming to Israel as a place of returning to, as opposed to, we say, the sense of aliyah as going up to or moving to, or modern Hebrew would say relokatsia, which means relocating to. But some people feel, as I do, that my soul was sort of born here, and that coming here is something of a return to where I belong. And another thing I'm going to say about Joseph is that he was a great dreamer, right? And he interpreted those dreams and managed to put those dreams into action. And you may also think about how great dreams inform your Zionism. As usual, I went to AI in terms of the relationship of Joseph to Zionism, and it's had complex relations with Jewish and Christian thoughts, ranging from how to survive in exile, as the Jews did for 2,000 years, and to cultural autonomy in terms of preserving our own culture when we're not in Israel and when we're here as well, and to messianic expectations, and also to literary metaphors. So in Jewish thought, in some Talmudic and Midrashic readings, the concept of Mashiach ben Yosef, sometimes it's Mashiach ben David, a melech, but sometimes it's said to go all the way back to Joseph. The figure is envisioned as a precursor to the primary Messiah, Mashiach ben David, who will gather the scattered Jews, the Israelites, march to Jerusalem, and reestablish temple worship. And this connects the biblical Joseph with the end of times hope of Jewish return and sovereignty that underpin religious Zionism. Joseph's rise to power in Egypt, a foreign land, made him an emblem of how Jews in the diaspora could achieve positions of influence and maintain cultural identity and autonomy. So the Jews, of course, in Egypt, under Joseph's help in getting the land of Goshen for the Jewish people, maintained their cultural autonomy and their identity rather than completely assimilating into Egypt, even without having a sovereign state in their homeland. And this offers a view of Jewish survival in exile that some early Zionist thinkers thought that we should move beyond and prefer what they called the new Jew, who would be sovereign in our own land rather than successful in other lands. And then there's Avraham Shlonsky, the 20th century poet, and others who use the stories of Joseph and Potiphar's wife as a metaphor to critique aspects of the secular ideology, particularly its concepts of masculinity and sexuality. And if anyone here has not read The Red Tent by Anita Diamond, I see France certainly has, and it looks like Liz has as well. It's a great book, fiction, a fiction book written by Anita Diamond, who's a great writer in the Boston area, and she did a fictionalized account from the rape of Dinah, the youngest, the daughter of Jacob, all the way through Joseph and who Joseph marries. Fictionalized for Joseph marrying Osnat, the daughter of Dinah. So Zionism is connected to the biblical Joseph through interpretations of his life stories as a precursor to the return from exile, with his dreams of greatness and eventual integration into Egypt being as a metaphor for Jewish national aspiration. And thinkers see his story as a narrative of overcoming adversity, which he certainly had, integrating both material and spiritual life, and using power to serve the Jewish people. And these are all thoughts that resonate with Zionist thought. His prophetic warnings about the Jews being strangers in a strange land also resonate with the Zionist drive for national sovereignty. I may say something about what kind of prophet he is, because a Muslim colleague tells me how Joseph, we say Yosef in Hebrew, and they say Yusuf, same name, is the only one in the Bible who's considered a prophet, son of a prophet, son of a prophet, son of a prophet, fourth generation, and the only one like that. After that, we're going to never have someone like that again. So the Joseph story includes his dreams, his exile, his spiritual and material life integrated, and the reconciliation. So his ultimate use of power to serve his family can be interpreted as a model for how the Jewish people should use their power and sovereignty to benefit themselves and the world. So those were some of the things that we know. There are many reflections of Joseph today. We talked about who uses the name Jacob and who uses the name Israel, and Beth Jacob hospitals and Beth Israel hospitals and synagogues. And we know there are countless Jews who are called Joseph or Yosef or Joe today. And these are the questions I have for you, is whether Zionism is related in terms of coming back, and have you seen Israel as a place of coming back to or coming up to? And Fran, you're going to be first today, and then we'll go to Anita and Fred. Gotta unmute yourself.
There we go. Sorry.
Good.
Okay. When I made Aliyah 18 years ago, I came on a Nefesh B'Nefesh plane, and everybody got loaded. It was all the usual chaos and everything, Jews finding places for themselves and all this sort of stuff. And finally, everybody sat down, everybody was buckled in, and it was ready to go. And the captain got on the intercom and said, "Relax, we have a long voyage. The weather looks good." And he said, "Just relax, enjoy it. I'm taking you home." So that is how I felt, that I was being taken home. And even though I spent most of my life in the diaspora, I always knew from the time I was old enough to know that Israel was my home. So I viewed coming here as returning to my home. So that's clear. And I want to make a quick comment about this thing about Jews in the diaspora on the model of Joseph as always achieving a lot and of climbing to a high level and standing out and giving to society and also, giving for themselves. Um, and I see this as a connection with how Jews in the diaspora, at least in the Western world, within the last couple of centuries, have done the same thing. That disproportionately Jews are successful academically. They're doctors, they're lawyers, they're professors, they're scholars, also politicians, disproportionately to their population. And I always growing up, I always thought, well, Jews are that way. Coming to Israel, I realized that Jews are also garbage collectors and gas station attendants. And in other words, it's their normal, regular people, and there isn't that drive. Not every Jew has to be a doctor, although the mother might want them to. And I see this as being a more natural environment. And this is the way they had to be in the diaspora, like Joseph, but when you're home, you can just be yourself. On the other hand, Israel being the Jew among nations, Israel has contributed disproportionately in the world, in medicine, in science, in technology, in computers, in name the field. So I think that I see Israel in that way still can, somehow, even though it's our home, as maintaining that impetus.
That's terrific. Okay, I'm glad you feel at home. I also feel at home, and I hope we all do, even though sometimes home is not a very comfortable place to be. But it's our home. Anita and Fred, and then we're going to hear from Alan. So you get ready, Alan, to unmute yourself.
Well, I grew up in New York City, and at the time, I think New York City may have been considered the center of Judaism in the world. It had more Jews than Israel at the time that I was born, and for much of the time when I was growing up. Uh, so I thought of New York City as being a Jewish homeland, and I really wasn't thinking too much of it as being part of diaspora. Well, things have changed now, and I don't think anybody would say that New York City is the capital of Judaism in the world, whereas Israel is. I'm not so concerned about being buried. I think it's a waste of good parts. But that's where I intend, Israel is where I intend to live the remainder of my life, and where my family uh, is now centered and will continue to be centered. Uh, and I certainly connect that with Jewish history. So I think I'm in the center of Judaism now, and it feels like the right place to be home.
Well, I'm glad you like being in the center too. Some people like to avoid the biggest central place. And I agree also being from New York City that once upon a time there were about 3 million Jews there and 2 million Jews in Israel. And now there are 960,000 Jews in New York City proper, according to Google. And there are a little over 6 million, no, 7.5 million Jews in Israel. So yes, the numbers have certainly changed. Anita?
Yeah, I probably have a little different perspective in that than I converted. So I didn't see returning to Israel, okay, as a significant point. Came primarily because all my kids' children are here. I do feel it more strongly now with a grandchild born here. It made a significant difference to me about my view of the country and that this is his land, and deeply concerned about what that might be in the future for him. But I guess I envisioned, though I could be naive for sure, and will not know, that he would spend his lifetime here. In addition, because of him, greater recognition of the importance of diversity in the country. And Fran pointed some of this out from the perspective of professions, but from the perspective of the people living here. My grandson knows English, Hebrew, and a fair number of words in Arabic now. And that's very, very, very significant to me. And I will encourage that for as long as I can. Uh, in addition to what Fran said, we came on a Nefesh B'Nefesh flight too, which was very moving. But I have to tell you, the most moving part of that flight was when we were in a building where they brought us to after we got off the plane, and in walked Sharansky. That moved me because he was a man who suffered a great deal because he was a Jew. He made it to Israel. You can agree or disagree with his politics or whatever, but he was, in my mind, somebody special. And I remembered also one of our daughters who, when she was in the Army here, Air Force here, she was in a restaurant with me in Jerusalem, and Sharansky walked in. My daughter, it was like a movie star from all over had walked into the door. Who would have thought, okay? She spent the whole meal sitting there saying, I want to go over and say hello. I want to go over and say hello. And I told her, I said, I cannot imagine that Sharansky would not say hello to you standing in front of him in a uniform and greeting him. When she got up enough nerve, he had turned around and left the restaurant. But so there are lots of significant people who have done lots of significant things to support the country and the people. He's just one example. But it was significant. I think Nefesh B'Nefesh obviously was a planned deal to pick somebody to walk in as we were making Aliyah, somebody who had struggled in his early life. And there he was, free as a bird, so to speak. I have kind of mixed collections, so that's it.
That's great. Well, yes, we have our stars, and many of them have earned their stardom as Sharansky did while abroad. He earning his best credentials as a refusenik and helping the cause of liberating so many Jews. And you mentioned the freedom to be here. And that, of course, is our anthem, right? Is Liot Chofshi Be'artzenu, to be free in our own land. So that's terrific. Alan from California, early riser.
Yeah. When I can you hear me?
Yes.
When I lived in San Francisco,
And Mizia, get ready. Go
I
ahead.
had a very rich Jewish life. Within walking distance of 3 synagogues, going to the JCC quite often, and so on. I moved to Truckee, where I happen to live now, and I began working for an evil company called Bally Gaming. And after about, I don't know, a year and a half of that, I said, well, I've got to go home. And then I had this overwhelming desire to say, well, home is Israel. And so in 2012, I made Aliyah, and I did have the feeling that when the plane touched down that I was home. It wasn't a Nefesh B'Nefesh flight because from San Francisco, there aren't as many people as from the East Coast. Although we could have gone to LA and gotten on a Nefesh B'Nefesh flight, but we didn't. We flew from San Francisco. But nonetheless, they threw a small party for us at the airport for the, I don't know, half dozen or a dozen people from San Francisco that made Aliyah. As everyone knows, I left in 2019 to take care of my daughter, a blessed memory, and now I'm sitting here back in Truckee again, now completely retired, and wondering, well, why I should not move back to Israel again. So that's sort of at the top of my mind. Joseph is inspirational as the ultimate story of redemption, the ultimate story of going home.
Ultimate story of redemption. That's great. You say it better than AI. And of course, if you decide to come back after doing great things as you did, including for your daughter, so you'll be welcomed back, no question. And here we are, all speaking English. As Anita said, we need, and before that, Fran, there is a diversity which is necessary here. And I think Edgar reflected some of that when he said that the Jews lived in Egypt. It didn't come up, but the time until Joseph's bones come back are biblically stated to have been 400 years, which is quite a long time. So obviously we had to know uh, Arabic, Egyptian Arabic at the time. But I like that ultimate story of redemption. Thank you, Alan. Liz? And then Gershon, you'll be ready?
Just a second.
Sure.
Let me make sure I'm in the right place here. Okay, so I'm not sure. My love for Israel developed throughout my lifetime. There was no like specific event. My mother was a Zionist, as was her uncle. And I remember as a child growing up and, buying trees to plant in Israel. And I expected when I came to the KKL Forest, I'd find trees with my name on them, which a lot of American Jewish kids all thought that the trees would have our names on them, or who we bought them for. But when I turned 17 in Israel, and I came home saying, I want to go to school in Israel. And being a little lower middle class person in New Jersey, they couldn't afford that. So I didn't get to return to Israel for 38 years. But once I started coming back, and when I turned 17 that summer, we met with Ben Gurion. We were staying at the YMCA there across from the whatever that hotel is there, and we had a big meeting, with Ben Gurion, and I had pictures of me standing next to him. So that was quite moving. But anyway, 38 years go by, and I come back to Israel, and it turns out that, my older son had caught the Zionist bug, and he came to Israel also the summer before he graduated college, and then said, what do you think about me going to medical school in Israel? And that was just the start for me of making many trips over. And each time I didn't want to come, every time I felt sadness, I have a week left, I have only 3 days left, I didn't want to go home. And the trips kept getting longer. But as a side note, I came with Hadassah, and on the form there was to pay extra money if you were to die to bring your body back. And to America, and I made it very clear to my son, no matter what happens, do not bring my body back. And we kind of laughed about that. And he's like, okay, Mom, I'll leave you there. But now I've been here in March will be 10 years, and I really can't imagine living anywhere else. And as hard as it is at some time, and of course, having special joy now that this son of mine who got the Zionist bug is living here now, that just, even more cements my commitment and future here in Israel.
Yeah, well, I'm glad he realized his Zionist bug.
He knew
And
he had it. His wife was resistant because when they got married, she wanted to raise the kids in America, so the kids would grow up by their cousins. But
mhm,
then in a year and a half ago, she realized she didn't like what she was seeing in America. And then
mhm.
they wanted to make Aliyah. And I'm hoping that this will continue for them because I can't imagine them now leaving.
Right. Well, I'm also impressed how you say how your mother and uncle, who of course never came on Aliyah, also were Zionists.
My mother
And it's,
came to Israel on trips as an adult, but never got to be here for any
well, I think it's
extended time.
important to recognize again and again that Zionism is not exclusive to people who are living or have lived or get buried in the land of Israel, but certainly that Zionism today, as all along, has included people like the prophet Joseph and many others, Sharansky and others who thought highly of Israel and felt a spiritual connection, a religious connection, um, it may or may not be a messianic connection, but that Zionism is not exclusively something that belongs to people who are living here. Terrific. Gershon? And then we're going to go, I think, to the Bronx. We're doing a big circle today.
Okay.
That's great.
First, I just want to
Oh, Mom, you'll
mention,
get unmuted.
to Fran that she commented on coming 18 years ago. And I'll just throw out there, if that happened to be a Nefesh B'Nefesh flight in July of 2007, we might have rubbed elbows on the plane there. That's when we came also.
18 years, yes?
Yep. And so as far as the first question, Zionism and being buried in Israel, I don't connect a lot with the thought of me being buried. I do.
No rush.
I do. Yeah, I do want there to be a place for my children to come visit me, in a sense, if they want to, or descendants beyond that. And so I would certainly want that to be here. It reminds me of something. I don't know if I told the story in this group before, but some 30 years ago when I was working in Illinois, and I had traveled up to Wisconsin to a medical center there, and a doctor started talking with me, and he asked me where was home. And I had lived multiple different places at that point in life, so I sort of hemmed and hawed, and he said, let me make it simple. Where do you want to be buried? And that sort of took me aback, because I didn't really have an answer to his question that day. But clearly, my answer is here now. And as far as being a place of returning to, I was always a little out of place in many ways in my life. And I did not understand until I had been here for a while that I could verbalize it as I was never really at home in the United States. I came at age 55. So only after that did I find what it was really like to be at home. I was at home with my family, with people I cared about in that sense in the United States. But in terms of the community around me, this is where I'm at home. So I didn't think of it as returning at the time, but clearly it was that for me. I don't really have anything to add about great dreams. Not sure. I'd have to. I've been thinking about it, but I have to think about it more.
Well, when we think about home, those are really good comments. I'm impressed that Shimon Reisner asked you where you wanted to be buried in order to help you decide where home is. But it's great that you do feel home, and it does feel different. There is kind of a difference between, for me too, as well as for you apparently, between the home, the sense of home or the connection to home. I want to make that sound different from patriotism. You can be an American patriot and you can feel that Israel is your home because you have kind of a more spiritual and soulful and religious connection here, even if you're not here.
I
Okay,
would
to the
just,
Bronx, Beverly and Ted. We can see you. You're not speaking yet.
Uh, you're going to speak, Bev? Yes, do you want to speak? No, I think home is where, I'll just say home is where the heart is. And, I came into the conversation pretty late. And as far as where my heart is, it's where my family is. And uh, So it's not necessarily a particular place. Um, can I speak, Jesse?
Yes, go ahead.
Well, I feel that Israel is definitely a special place, and it was. I didn't realize it until I met somebody who was a Holocaust survivor and a very strong Zionist, and a student of Jabotinsky. And I could see when you say Israel that he was there was a special connection. And he transmitted that to me. And then, and I was very naive. I was young. I didn't know about the war and so on. But I certainly see Israel as a necessity, and that people have to learn the history, and we'll see the wonders of Israel and the miracles that made Israel what it is today. And as Golda Meir says, there is no place to go. So we've got to stay here and fight for it. And that's what Jews have done from the beginning. They have always had to fight for them to be where they are. And I don't see that Israel has not made mistakes. Yes, it has. Every country has. Certainly, I see it in the United States. Many mistakes, but as a spiritual place, no question. You could feel it in Israel when you walk the streets. You can feel it. The love that people have for Israel is beyond patriotism. It is a spiritual connection. And I think that adds a dimension to life. And when you said you wanted to go to Israel, you didn't have to fight us. We supported your efforts all the way, and I never regretted that. And of course, Ted is such a Zionist, and and is so proud of you and of Israel. And yes, it has made mistakes. Okay. Every country has. And it's such a new country, and look at what it has achieved in the very return of the Hebrew language. What a miracle that a whole country is speaking Hebrew. So I could understand Joseph and anyone else really wanting to be in Israel. Some can, some have options, some don't have options, but it's either Israel or some anti-Semitic country. Those people have no options. They have to come to Israel. And I don't know, maybe eventually the United States will be the same way. But, we've had a good life here, and grateful for our Israeli family, and proud as could be of all the soldiers fighting in our family. It is, we engaged in Israel bond drives
and sent millions of dollars over to Israel over the years and did what we could and still willing to do what we can. So there is some connection. Maybe it just can't be verbalized.
Well, that's how faith is. I do agree very much that it's a spiritual thing, and there is a pride and a fulfillment more than a pride of those who manage to come to Israel and live here, whether it's for a shorter time or for a longer time, and as we've said, and we'll continue to be exploring Zionism. Zionism is not something exclusive to people who are here. And there are many ways to express Zionism and to feel it. And it's very hard, as was just said, to put into words the feeling that people get when they're home, the feeling that people have when they are in a land that we feel are our own. But hopefully through this study together, we're reaffirming and confirming our own concepts regarding Zionism. So that's going to be it for today. And I'm going to say Shabbat Shalom to everyone. Again, it's a great pleasure to be studying together. We may just say a prayer.
Anita wanted to say something.
Yeah,
Anita?
I want to say something 1 second, just to put it
Go
on the
ahead.
table. Because something happened today in the United States or yesterday that I wonder what kind of impact this will have on Zionism, view of Zionism, et cetera, and people coming to Israel. I don't think it will pass, but a law was proposed to do away with dual citizenships. That would mean all of us in this room or this Zoom class who have dual citizenship with Israel and the US would have to make a different kind of decision than probably we made in the past. I know my sisters did this years and years ago when they were born in Venezuela and went to the US. So it's just a different aspect of looking at coming to Israel, which I suspect would be different if something like this actually passed. So we have the spiritual, we have the regulation, there's all sorts of parts to coming to Israel, which makes it very complex. That's the last thing, and Shabbat Shalom.
Very, very true. There are logistics as well to coming here. That's true.
But Anita, just to add, from what I read of it, it's not a retroactive requirement. If you already have the dual citizenship, the proposal doesn't touch us. It's for the people who
Right.
gain
No,
it.
I don't disagree with that, but some of us may have
There will also be exceptions, no doubt.
It's not a
Each of these
plus.
laws goes into exceptions.
So
We have to bring a lawyer into this group, and
I don't
Nathan is
think
not
it's
here
likely.
today.
Okay.
But,
I don't
but
think it's not likely to pass. Very unlikely.
Gonna wish you all Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom. Thank
That
you
we're
very much,
studying
everybody.
together.
Bye,
Thanks so
guys.
much.
Shabbat Shalom and thank you.
Bye bye. Shalom. Thank you, everyone.